Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you've seen from the thumbnail, today I'll be working on another coin purse. However, this time instead of using sequins, I'll be using beads. Now I normally use 8 O's to make these purses, but I'll be using 6 O's today because they're slightly bigger and they'll be more visible for, the camera and filming purposes. Since this is also Louboutin inspired, it will of course be in the black and red colour scheme. I'll also be using a needle and thread, some fabric which will be cut down to size, a kiss clasp of course, some monofilament or nylon wire, and finally a beading needle. For this project you can use any beads that you like and in any size, but I've chosen to use seed beads because it's what I have most of in stock, and I will acknowledge that there is a huge variety of beads to choose from, including the delicas, matadors and rock owls, and that's just to name a few. But without diving down that big massive dreaded rabbit hole of beads, take a look at the size chart on screen for the seed beads. As you can see from the chart, I prefer to stay within the 11O to 6O range, so anything inside the red box basically. Saying that, I crossed off 9Os and 7Os because they are not sizes stocked by the retailer I purchase from regularly, and the most common sizes tend to be 11Os, 10Os, 8Os and 6Os. One thing you'll notice about the bead sizing is that the larger the number, the smaller the bead, the smaller the number, the larger the bead, which always annoys me, but now I've gotten used to it. It takes a while to get used to, but once you do get your hands and you're handling them more regularly, you get a feel for them and it just becomes second nature. I start off by threading the beads onto the yarn. If you haven't watched my previous sequin purse video, I go into more depth on the threading process. Since it's pretty much the same thing here, you can take a look at that video if there's anything you're unsure of or need more clarification on. I've linked the video in the description box below for you to reference that at any point. But in order to keep this video a reasonable size today, I'll be keeping things brief, and I'll assume that you've either watched my other video already or are at least familiar with the processes. Once all the beads have been strung, it's time to start crocheting. I begin with a magic circle as usual and start crocheting the purse until its completion. Ideally, you should have strung enough beads for the entire pattern, but if you miscalculate and find yourself short, it's not the end of the world. You can always cut your working yarn and restring. That's something you'll also be able to see in the previous purse video as well. So, fun fact, I actually started making these coin purses with beads originally, then I branched out into using the sequins because I was experimenting. I wanted to experiment with textures, and I like the armoured, almost fish scale look with the sequins, and with the beads you have something smoother instead, and you can also get different looks when you increase and decrease the size of the beads. I started out with the 8O beads and I moved up to the 6Os, and I decided I actually liked them both. I plan to go up even more just to see how far I can take things before they get a little bit ridiculous, but at the end of this video I'll show you examples of the 8O beaded purse that I did and other 6O beads in the examples, as well as I think I might also have one sequin version too to show. It's now time for the lining. I prefer to use a rectangular piece of fabric and fold it over so that I only have the two seams to sew together, or rather two edges, but that's because I hate hand sewing so much but you can choose to use two square pieces if you like. The choice is entirely up to you. So after the lining is done, I just turn it right side out and stitch it into the inside of the coin sack. I tried to do this as neatly as possible since it will be visible when you open the purse. Even though I've never had caviar before, I think the beads look a bit like caviar and they just remind me of caviar. But anyway, and surprisingly, they make for great ASMR. Or even possibly a fidget toy. Just a quick side step to show you the size comparison between the two purses. So as you can see, the one on the left is got the 8/0s, the smaller beads, and the one on the right has got the larger beads, the 6/0s. So you'll be able to see that the smaller beads that you choose, the more of the yarn that you'll be able to see, and they look like they're more evenly spaced throughout the purse. So depending on the look that you're going for, you will want to choose your beads accordingly. The last step is to attach the clasp using a nylon wire. I'm using a 0.25mm wire here. You don't have to use that, but I just find that it's incredibly strong. You can instead also use normal thread or invisible thread, or just the same yarn that you use to crochet the project. But if you want something slightly more longer lasting and more robust, then you might want to go and use the nylon wire instead. That's what I would recommend. So as I'm finishing off the purse, I'd just like to say thanks for watching. I love making these purses and I'll continue to do so and show you the variations that I make in the future, as well as the different shapes and sizes. Thanks again for watching, and please like, share and even consider subscribing if you like the content I make. Don't forget to hit that bell button to be notified when I upload a new video, and feel free to leave a comment and enjoy the beauty shots. See you in the next one. Bye!